Imagine either your mother or one of your siblings being savagely beat. Domestic violence is one of the most persistent human rights violations worldwide. It involves physical, emotional, or psychological abuse within the home, especially against women. In Lebanon, despite the enactment of Law Number 293 in 2014, which was designed to protect victims, a plethora of women still suffer in silence due to weak enforcement and social stigma. Domestic violence has profound roots in patriarchal social norms that tolerate male dominance in the household. According to CAFA, reports of domestic abuse increased by more than 100% during the COVID-19 lockdowns, revealing the urgency of government intervention. Many victims lack access to legal protection, safe shelters, and counseling services, leaving them trapped in cycles of abuse. Although Lebanon has introduced laws to combat domestic violence, weak enforcement, cultural stigma, and limited government support continue to endanger victims. Stronger governmental intervention through stricter legislation, public awareness, and expanded support services is essential to address and prevent domestic violence effectively. According to CAFA, in 2021, nearly 60% of reported cases involve repeated abuse within marriage, showing how cultural acceptance of male dominance sustains the problem. Deeply ingrained patriarchal traditions legitimize male control and silence victims, discouraging them from reporting abuse. Economic dependency also prevents many women from leaving abusive relationships, especially when they lack financial or housing alternatives. Institutional weaknesses such as slow judicial processes and insufficient training among law enforcement fail to protect victims effectively. Whilst perpetrators of domestic violence benefit from a culture of silence and impunity, that leads to political and religious institutions indirectly maintaining the system by resisting reforms that challenge traditional gender roles. Moreover, weak enforcement of Law Number 293 and the absence of clear criminalization of domestic abuse has left many victims unprotected. The Lebanese government's lack of funding for shelters and social services further limits access to justice. The current Lebanese Penal Code still contains provisions that minimize gender-based violence, and Law Number 293 lacks comprehensive enforcement mechanisms. Failure to integrate gender sensitivity into police and judicial training perpetuates institutional negligence. Lebanon's Law Number 293 of 2014 was a landmark step towards addressing domestic violence, but its limited scope and weak enforcement have reduced its effectiveness. Domestic violence impacts not only individuals, but also society, the economy, and future generations. Victims often suffer long-term psychological trauma, depression, and health issues that impede their social and professional lives. Children exposed to domestic violence are more likely to develop behavioral problems and to normalize aggression in their future relationships. Economically, domestic violence drains public resources due to healthcare costs, lost productivity, and social welfare burdens. In the short run, women and children would still be abused. In the long term, continued inaction reinforces systemic gender inequality. Without strong intervention, domestic violence will remain a silent epidemic. In 2014, the Law 293 was introduced, which criminalized certain forms of domestic violence but failed to ensure protection. NGOs such as Kafa and Abad have played a major role in raising awareness and providing shelters, but their reach is limited by the lack of government support. Judicial reforms and awareness campaigns have achieved partial success but remain unsustainable without state funding. Three solutions can be proposed for the future: strengthen and amend Law Number 293 to include all forms of abuse and guarantee immediate legal protection for victims; increase government funding for safe shelters, legal aid, and psychological services in coordination with civil society organizations; launch nationwide educational campaigns targeting schools and media to challenge gender stereotypes and promote equality. The most effective course of action would be for the Lebanese government to establish a fully funded national agency dedicated to combating domestic violence. Establishing a dedicated government agency to oversee domestic violence cases and coordinate between ministries of justice, interior, and social affairs; implementing specialized training for judges and police officers to ensure victim-sensitive procedures; and encouraging public reporting through anonymous hotlines and digital tools while protecting victims' identities. The persistence of domestic violence in Lebanon stems from cultural traditions, inadequate laws, and limited government intervention. Addressing it requires both structural reform and cultural transformation. Legislative reform and effective enforcement are critical to ending impunity. Government partnerships with NGOs and international organizations can strengthen prevention and protection. Societal education and awareness are essential to break the cycle of violence. Domestic violence is not a private issue. It is a public crisis that demands states' utmost attention. Strengthening government intervention is not only a moral duty, but a necessary step towards justice and equality. In the short run, women and children will still be abused, but in the long term, with reform and awareness, Lebanon can build a society where no victim is silenced. Let us advocate for stronger laws, better enforcement, and compassionate institutions that protect victims rather than silence them. That way, we can safeguard all victims from this horrendous human rights violation.